tell you, I'm having all kind of allergies right now. And we have a very special guest today, Stephanie, who herself has had an amazing, amazing story. She is a health nutritionist and a gut health specialist. Welcome, Stephanie.
Thank you so much for having me. And yeah, I feel your pain. You were just saying how you woke up this morning and all of these allergies, right? And so kind of how I got into this field is I've always been, even as a child, I was always into the fruits and veggies, and I wasn't really attracted to soda or candy or any of those kinds of things. But especially since I've had my son and the last 8 years or so, I've really been into fitness and nutrition and just, making solid choices and all of that. And I went through years, decades of allergies and asthma and sinus issues. And, so I would get on an antibiotic and then that would work for a couple of days. And then I would get off of the antibiotic and then it would come right back. And then I'd have to get on another one. And eventually, it was stronger and stronger and stronger antibiotics. And then it was steroids. And every time I got put on a steroid, mentally, it's like, it messes you up, right? It just is causing all of these other side effects. And, it's a vicious cycle. And so then I got into a point where I was with one company. I have my own business, and I was starting to find out that the products that I was promoting were not that great, and I started to have a lot of women that ended up very, very sick as well. I ended up with heavy metal toxicity, and so did my son. And so I was really praying for an answer and a solution for not only myself and my son, but my whole entire community that I had led through this health and wellness path. And so anyways, I went through, I am a holistic wellness and gut health specialist, and I'm actually now also a certified fasting coach through a program called the Faster Way to Fat Loss, which is also fasting for health, making sure that we're fasting correctly, because that's another thing, right? People hear intermittent fasting and they're like, oh yeah, I'm fasting. I've been doing it for years, but they don't realize A, they're not eating enough. B, they're still not eating the right foods. And that, then we get into trouble with that too. So anyways, back to my allergy and sinus issues, it just was this vicious cycle. And so I actually ended up getting, it's called a balloon surgery, where they go in and they basically put a balloon in all your sinuses. And they were like, okay, well, that's going to do it. That's going to do it. Well, it didn't do it, right? It worked for just a little while. And then I'm back in there again. And they're like, well, basically it's just everything's living in your face, because when you're getting these over-the-counter medications and prescriptions, also, it's pretty much just drying everything up, and then it's just housed in your body. And then essentially what starts to happen now, I know this, is it's turning into candida. You have bacteria, essentially, right? So yes, you have maybe some allergies, but we're not taking the right things to get to the root cause, right? Like a turmeric or, whatever that is. I'll talk about that in a minute. Now have these amazing herbs that I take that, myself and now hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people are off all of their medications. But what was happening is not only, the stuff wasn't able to kind of leave your body, it's drying up, it's causing more bacteria, candida. Now it's feeding off of that. So now it's like, yes, I have allergy and sinuses, but also, is it just the outside? No, it's probably also the things that we're eating, right? And we're constantly just exposed to so many chemicals, especially here in the United States. You hear people say, well, I eat organic. And it's like, okay, awesome. But how do you know? How do you know that, that this farm is free from chemicals, but it's not right next to a farm that's full of chemicals, or that there's a plant down the road 20 miles that's excreting pollutants into the air or the ground right into that field, right? We don't know that. So it's important to know supplementation is really key, especially in the United States. But here's kind of what happens. So everybody hears about leaky gut. I would really probably wholeheartedly be able to say that every American probably has leaky gut. What leaky gut is that your lining, right? Essentially, it's like a net. And when you continuously have all of these inflammatory foods, things that chemicals, things that we're coming in contact with, the bad stuff is then getting into your bloodstream, essentially, and it's kind of going all over your body and wreaking havoc everywhere. So Now we have autoimmune diagnosis or autoimmune symptoms, right? You'll hear people saying, well, this is just, this runs in my family. This is our genes. And I'm here to tell you that fortunately, you can change that, right? It doesn't have to be, well, my mom and my grandma and everybody has that, so I do. Okay, now we have supplementation. We can start to look at that stuff. So when we're talking about allergies, sensitivities, right, and intolerance, they're all different things. Many people this day and age, especially, I'm trying to think, it's like millions of people will say, I'm allergic to X, Y, and Z. And really it ends up to be about 1% out of, some of these cases that have a true allergy. Now, a true allergy is going to be you're in anaphylactic shock, right? You need the EpiPen, you're going to the ER. That's an allergy. An allergy is also where you're going to get hives and things like that. Allergies are your immune system, right? Whereas an intolerance or a sensitivity is going to be like your digestive system, right? So this is where we see huge increases in ADHD, depression, allergies, sinuses, obesity, you name it, hormone imbalance, autoimmune, lupus, all of those things, RA, any of the things you can think of. It's because people are eating things that they're sensitive to over and over and over and over and over and over again, right? They go to the doctor, they get an allergy test. It comes back that they don't have any true allergies, but they're the sensitivities, exposure, time after time after time, day after day after day after day is what is causing all of this, right? So then they get prescribed medication. The medication has the side effects. It's a never-ending story, really.
Vicious circle here. So tell us a little bit about your story. How did you kind of manage your allergies? Because I know everyone, all of us, especially with spring and all those things going on, there are allergies coming. I mean, I'm probably getting hives, but I want to hear your story.
Yeah, so what I did is I came across the company is called Soul Naturals, and it is not just herbs, but it's the highest classification of herbs, which are called adaptogenic herbs. The awesome thing about adaptogenic herbs is they address the mind and body simultaneously, because also when you have a sensitivity or intolerance, there's different levels of signs and symptoms that happen. And a lot of the time, those signs and symptoms are emotional too, right? So we know that our gut, so just so you know, your gut is essentially from your mouth down to your anus. It's all of this, right? This is where all of the serotonin is created. This is where everything gets sent to the brain. Like 90% of all of those feelings and all of that stuff is coming from our gut. So for me, I just continued. I was taking all of those, like I said, all of the medications. Once I found these adaptogenic herbs, I started to take one of these capsules. It's called Soul Clear. It's got eyebright and turmeric and all of these amazing herbs in it. But then I also did this cleanse, and it's a 14-day cleanse. So most people that I start working with, I put them through this 14-day cleanse. People have such a bad idea of what a cleanse should be, right? Most people think cleanse, toilet, I'm going to poop a lot. And that's not right. We want to nourish our body. So this 14-day cleanse that I use is nourishing the body. It's basically, we call it a bowls cleanse. So it's like bowel, urinary, lymph, liver, skin, and sinus, right? So you're cleaning out everything, but also nourishing at the same time. You're replenishing trace minerals and all of that stuff. When we're just trying to get everything out of our system, it doesn't do any good because we're already rid of such good nutrition to begin with. So then if we're just like dehydrating our system and just going to the bathroom and putting, most of these cleanses also have a lot of chemicals and toxins in them already. So you're already depleted of nutrition, and then you're putting these chemicals in, and then you're getting everything out. So I started with that cleanse, and I also use what's called it's Neil Med. It's a little squeezy. I should have brought it down here. It's a little tiny bottle, and it comes with this little solution, like a salt solution. You put in one little packet, and you put it in one nose and blow everything out. And then the other side as well. So remember when I was saying, when you're taking all these medications and allergy over the counter and eye drops and nose sprays and all that, it's essentially drying everything up, but it's still housed in your head. If it's still living there, it needs to come out. And so that's what I do, especially when times are really, when it is, everything is blooming and stuff like that. But the biggest thing is I've learned, I have a hair sensitivity test. It tests 650 foods, right? Foods, and then also it tests up to 50 heavy metals, and then also the outdoor factors. So, people think that it's just the outdoor factors, but it's not. Usually it's because you already have so many things that you continue to eat every day. Like for me, for instance, I couldn't figure out why, if I ate so clean, why I had all of these amazing supplements, I'm exercising all the time, why am I still getting all of this inflammation? For me, I know almost immediately, if I'm eating tortilla chips, my face is going to get swollen, right? It's that gluten or whatever. Yeah, but for a lot of people, the symptoms and signs of a sensitivity or intolerance can take days for some people. So you do a food elimination diet. Okay, awesome. But when you do a food elimination diet, you're eliminating like whole food groups. Well, you're not sensitive to a whole food group. So that's kind of, now I will say, yes, you want to eliminate gluten, usually dairy, especially for women, even because you see now little girls so early as 9 years old are getting their menstrual cycle. Why? Because of all the stuff that's in the dairy, right? You want to stay away from alcohol, things like that. Eating the whole foods, getting rid of the processed foods. That's a big thing what I work with my families and children. But anyways, using the detox and then just maintaining that whole food nutrition, and then trying to figure out your sensitivity. So the sensitivity that I offer, it's a test. It's $95, but it's unbelievable. It comes back, tells you all the heavy metals, tells you what you're deficient in as well. But for me, what was happening is I'm like, gosh, I'm eating so clean and I still have all of this, inflammation, and I could tell my nose was like bigger and swollen all the time. And I was eating tons. I get packages and packages of tomatoes, right? So then I was making all of my own spaghetti sauce and chilies and all of these things. Well, it turns out that I have a very high sensitivity to cooked tomatoes, but not raw tomatoes. Right? So this is where it can be tricky to just do a food elimination. Because again, if you're eliminating, some people eliminate all fruit. Well, that's crazy to eliminate fruit because A, we need carbs, and B, fruits, especially berries and stuff like that, that's an anti-inflammatory food. You want those kinds of things. Also, usually for the most part, with somebody with either autoimmune or, a lot of these symptoms, it's really hard for your body to break down raw vegetables. So typically they'll say having your cooked carrots, celery, things like that, it's easier to break down. It's still giving you some nutrition. And then another tip that I always say is bone broth. Making your own bone broth, not buying it, making it. I myself, I don't eat meat. I'm a pescatarian, so I am veggie, and then I eat shrimp, salmon, things like that. So I make a veggie broth, and in particular, what you want in there is turmeric, rosemary, onions, carrots, celery, those kinds of things, ginger, turmeric, whatever you can put into that broth. And if you're drinking that, I did that almost every single day for a really long time as I was starting to really heal my gut, get rid of that candida. And then I stopped taking all over the counter medications. So what I say my job is, what I do in my business is I help people stay off of and get off of medications and over the counter, alternatives. Because if we can put the pure stuff that comes right out of the ground instead of the things that have the fillers and the side effects and all of that, then you're just going to start to thrive. And so as a gut health specialist, as you can imagine, I work with people with all kinds of SIBO and IBS and, and then autoimmune, like I said, lupus, RA and all that. And what starts to happen is making those changes, all the symptoms start to go away. People start to come off their medications, and we do it in conjunction with talking to the doctors and making sure the testing and stuff is going well. But sometimes people are fed up. And so sometimes they're like, okay, help me safely come off of this medication. And then when they go in for their testing, they all of a sudden realize, the doctors are like, oh, wow, you're really thriving. This must be the right dose for you or whatever. And they're like, I'm not taking the medication anymore. So
no, I think that's incredible. That's incredible. And that's what we want to bring, real user stories, right? And those are more inspirational for a lot of people. I mean, it's inspirational for me. I was telling you my story, and I haven't done cleanse and all those things that you're talking about, but I really want to thank you for sharing your story today and telling us, what you have done to really look, get out of this, get off the medication, and you're staying off the medication right now, right? So thank you so much for being with us.
So welcome. Yeah, I haven't had to be on medication for about 3 years now. So
wow, amazing, amazing. Well, thank you, Stephanie, for being with us and sharing your story to all the viewers. We were just wanted to bring a real story from a gut health specialist who herself went through all kind of allergy issues and what she did, like cleansing. Ayurveda talks about the same thing. You talked about the cleansing. You're talking about the neti pot, kind of putting your thing in your nose. I think there are other modalities, like Ayurveda also talks about nasya, very similar to what you're saying. And then the testing, that is of course very relevant. It's scientific and evidence, so you can know what to eat, what not to eat. Anything else you'd like to add to summarize before I wrap up, before I close the session today?
I think that's it. If anybody has questions, I'm always happy. My messenger is always full, so I'm always happy.
Great.
Yeah, to answer any of those questions. And thank you for your time today as well. This is great.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Stephanie. And thank you to everyone. Bye-bye.